Russian airliner crashes in Egypt. Li Keqiang in South Korea as three-way summit resumes. And fallout from Hong Kong U injunction banning leaked recordings.
Good evening. More than 200 people on board a Russian airliner are feared dead when it crashed shortly after takeoff in Egypt. The Airbus jet was en route from the resort of Sharm el-Sheikh to St. Petersburg. Egyptian officials say it crashed in a remote part of the Sinai Peninsula. It was supposed to have been a routine morning flight from the Egyptian Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh to the Russian city of St. Petersburg. But Metrojet flight 7K9268, carrying 217 passengers and 7 crew members, disappeared 23 minutes after taking off from the Egyptian city. Most of the passengers were said to be Russian tourists. To begin with, there was some confusion about what had happened. Initial reports suggested air traffic controllers had lost touch with the plane, with the Airbus A321 possibly coming down over Cyprus. Then there were reports the plane re-established contact over Turkey. But Turkey said it had no information about the Russian plane ever entering its airspace. Later today, Egyptian officials confirmed the worst, that the plane had indeed crashed in the central Sinai Peninsula. They added that search and rescue teams had found the wreckage in the Hassana area south of the city of El Arish. It's an area where Egyptian security forces have been fighting Islamic militants, but there's nothing to suggest the crash had anything to do with the local insurgency there.
Premier Li Keqiang is in Seoul for a three-way summit tomorrow with South Korean President Park Geun-hye and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The meeting is aimed at repairing relations strained by historical and territorial issues. Alan Bookneer reports.
Premier Li Keqiang was greeted at the airport by South Korean officials led by First Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs Lim Sung-nam. The three-way summit had been held annually starting in 2008, but it was discontinued after 2012 as Japan's ties with its two neighbors deteriorated, stemming from Tokyo's resistance to acknowledge its wartime aggression and China's increasing assertiveness in the South China Sea. China and Japan have been gradually resuming exchanges after diplomats agreed to restart contacts last November. Lee met with South Korean President Park Geun-hye this afternoon. The focus was on trade issues between the region's closest economic partners. The summit comes as South Korea and the United States staged military drills in international waters off the Korean peninsula this week. It's thought that Lee sought some assurance from Park that Seoul, a key U.S. ally, will remain neutral in the recent flare-up between Beijing and Washington over the U.S. Navy's navigation through disputed waters in the South China Sea. Park is scheduled to meet separately with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Monday. Like China, Seoul's ties with Tokyo have been icy. The two countries have struggled to settle disputes stemming from Japan's brutal colonial rule of the Korean peninsula. While it's unlikely anything exceptional will transpire from the meetings, analysts say it's meaningful that the neighbors have taken the first step in overcoming their bitter differences by restoring an environment for high-level dialogue. Alan Bookneer, TVB News.
A crucial high-level meeting has ended in Vienna with calls for a nationwide truce, fresh elections, and a new constitution in war-torn Syria. But while some progress was made on solving the 4-year-old civil war, there was no agreement on the fate of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. James Aiken reports.
The unprecedented talks, including the United States, Russia, and other powers, ended with a joint statement saying that while substantial differences remain, it is imperative to accelerate all diplomatic efforts to end the war.
I would say that this meeting was definitely not an easy one, but for sure an historical one, as we had for the first time all the actors around the table. And I would say, a very constructive atmosphere.
So this is a process now that has some momentum, that will go forward, and that in itself is extremely positive. It's been a very worthwhile day.
The United Nations is being asked to lead talks between representatives of the government of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and the opposition to create a political process leading to a credible, accountable government. The talks were attended for the first time by Assad's closest ally, Iran, which until now has rejected a UN-backed proposal for a transition of power in Damascus. However, Tehran is now indicating that it would back a 6-month political transition in Syria, followed by elections to decide Assad's fate. The U.S. insists Assad must go.
The United States position is there is no way that President Assad can unite and govern Syria. And we believe that Syrians deserve a different choice.
Officials will meet again within 2 weeks. Yesterday's talks ended as Washington announced plans to station American soldiers in Syria over the next few weeks. Dozens of Special Forces troops will be deployed as advisors to assist local forces fighting Islamic State. The decision marks a shift by the Obama administration, which had resisted putting U.S. boots on the ground in Syria. The U.S. military has been conducting airstrikes against militants in Syria and Iraq since last year, but has been reluctant to send in ground forces. James Aiken, TVB News.
In local news now, the chairman of the University of Hong Kong Council has defended a decision by the school to obtain a court order to prevent the publication of content from its council meetings. But as Rani Samtani reports, critics say the move violates freedom of speech.
Controversy deepens as the University of Hong Kong was granted a temporary injunction. Council Chairman Leung Chi-hung today admitted it was his call to apply for the court order, citing the need to safeguard the council's confidentiality.
To me, any form of disintegration of confidentiality is unacceptable. Now, I, as the chairman of the council, do have the responsibility to maintain the integrity of the university and the council. And I will do every possible ways to ensure that this integrity is being maintained.
The court order stops anyone from publishing, communicating, or disclosing any audio recordings and documents from the council's meetings. It prohibits the publication of information liable to identify members of the university. A court hearing on the matter will be held next Friday. Over the past week, commercial radio broadcast 2 leaked audio clips from a council meeting. Because of the injunction, the station has removed the recordings from the website. HKU law professor Albert Chen noted that in urgent cases, the chairman is entitled to make decisions on behalf of the council. But the HKU Alumni Concern Group is calling on the university to withdraw the court order. The group says it infringes press freedom and is too broad.
What he did is to attempt to protect the confidentiality, and that's all. And he is not trying to protect the university. He is not trying to protect the institutional autonomy. I don't think he is doing the right thing.
What C.H. Leung did by applying for this ex parte injunction was to rub salt into a bleeding wound once the press has reported on a matter. The court will protect press freedom because press freedom is singled out and protected by our courts.
The saga over the appointment of its pro-vice chancellor has put HKU's autonomy under the spotlight. And these concerned alumni believe one of the only ways to regain public trust is for the University Council to be more transparent and open about its decisions. And in a joint statement, the Hong Kong Journalists Association, the Hong Kong Press Photographers Association, and 3 media groups accused the university of undermining press freedom. They noted the council's recent decisions are a matter of public interest. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
Secretary for Transport and Housing Anthony Cheung has admitted his bureau will fail to meet its public housing supply target over the next 5 years. But he insists there is no need to move the goalpost of a 3-year wait for a public rental unit. Latest government figures show fewer than 100,000 subsidised public flats will be available in the next 5 years. For the year 2019-2020, only 9,000 homes are projected to be built, far lower than the annual government target of 20,000 flats. On the other hand, the potential supply of private homes is expected to reach an 11-year high for the next 4 years. Speaking to TVB News today, the housing chief explained that when the government sells land to private developers, the sites are generally mature sites, already suitable for building homes, so developers don't have to spend much time doing preparation work. However, land provided to the Housing Authority often requires a lot of such preparation work. Anthony Cheung insists the government's priority is on public flats. He said under its long-term housing policy, public flats should account for 60% of total supply, while private homes constitute 40%. Cheung also admitted the government is failing to meet the waiting time for public rental housing. The target is 3 years from applying for a flat to moving into one. But he believes the target shouldn't be lowered because it could hamper government efforts to secure land to build homes.
And still ahead in the news tonight, a tragic night out for clubgoers in the Romanian capital. Locally, new guidelines for controversial school assessment scheme. And the New York Mets making it a World Series.
Fancol Tensor Collagen Drink presents The Dark Knight Rises.
He's out there, somewhere.
The man in the skull mask. Who is he?
Something about him just seems off.
If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were coming to me like a jealous ex-boyfriend.
You gotta send some officers here. All of them.
You need to get out of there now.
I'm still on parole. Not anymore.
Tuesday. Arrow Season 2 at 10:40 on Pearl.
This is a good time to tell you why the chair at Direct Asia matters. A good chair means no back problems for your personal claims specialist. That matters because she can focus on you.
Don't worry, I will handle your claim from start to finish.
A personal claims specialist focus means no long calls repeating case details, and that matters for a faster and happier claim settlement. That's why the chair at Direct Asia matters. Get a quote today. Direct Asia Insurance, where happier matters.
Earth's last wild frontier.
You cannot believe what I'm seeing.
Now threatened with a man-made invasion.
There's some hope that we could escape that fate, at least in some parts of the planet.
Tuesday, Earth, a new wild at 9:35 on Pearl Spectacular. Billionaire property developer Cecil Chow talks about his dreams.
I put lots of hope on Gigi, my daughter.
You just have to work damn hard and just keep going until you get there.
Wednesday, Tissot Chamandi 12 Collection presents Tycoon Talk and the Next Generation, the last episode at 9 on Pearl.
And welcome back to TVB News. At least 27 people have been killed and more than 180 injured in a fire and a stampede at a nightclub in the Romanian capital. Romanian officials fear the death toll could rise given that many clubgoers suffered serious injuries. Romania's government has convened a special meeting on the disaster and is expected to declare 3 days of national mourning. It was a gruesome scene outside this nightclub in the Romanian capital of Bucharest. Scores of people lay on the ground being treated for their injuries, while medics rushed the more seriously injured to hospital. Authorities scrambled some 60 ambulances and fire engines to the scene, while a mobile hospital had been set up outside. Officials said up to 400 people, many of them teenagers or in their early 20s, were gathered at the club for a performance by the Romanian heavy metal band Goodbye to Gravity. The disaster happened during the band's performance when a pyrotechnical special effect went out of control. Clubgoers told local media that a spark on stage ignited some polystyrene decor. Photos posted on social media appeared to show a flame emanating from a pillar covered in foam insulation. Afterwards, witnesses